Nix Nay, the Nay Nays. Ooh, that would be a good title. Nix Nay, the Nay Nays. Or say nay. Say no to God. Enjoy this over here. My name is Philip Fanstone, and this is Phil Files. Mario Murillo is speaking this Friday night at the Mabee Center or Robertson University. I really encourage everybody to come if you're in town or if you're in this area. Don't know a ton about him, but I have an experience, what I call an anchor. When I was 12, my family, we went to Victory Christian. He came and he spoke at the Mabee Center on a Sunday night. And my family was there. We went every time the doors open. Okay. Which is why I've heard 10,000 sermons over the course of my life. Of course, as an adult, I still go to church. So, once it kind of takes, it's like Sunday morning, I'm going to go to church. I mean, that's just what I do. And he gives a sermon about the Lazarus generation. And good little sermon. That's not the point of this video, but he gives this sermon, and I go down front. And he actually asked. He just asked for all the young people to come down front. So at that time, I was a young people. I was 12. And I go down front, my brother's there, and this is not a judgment on Sam. This is just our personalities. Sam's a little bit more, just jumps right into things. All right? When we were singing, when we go to church, he would have his hands up, singing, praise, worship to God, right? As soon as I'd have to kind of get into it. I'd have to kind of warm up. I'd have to be okay, just personality-wise, okay. So we go down front, and he, boom, immediately shoots his hands up. And I look at him and I judge him a little bit in my head. 12-year-old, he's 11, and I'm like, oh, there's Sam again, right? And I hear this. That's probably the first time I heard what I believe to be God, all right? But I'm just going to say it's what I believe. You can argue with it, but this is what I heard. It's just, never mind him. You just praise me. For me, and this is kind of an aside, a secret. It's a secret. The things in my life that when I believe I hear from God, most of the time it's fully formed thoughts that just boom. If I have to autocorrect the thought and spell check it, and it's not from God. Usually the things from God are just boom. There's this idea. So I've never heard an audible voice, not yet at least. But I have heard a lot of these thoughts that just fully formed, and they're very deep. And so the more I think about them, I'm like, okay, if that wasn't God, then that was a really awesome subconscious thought. But whatever it was, it's wisdom. So I'm like, whether it's God or whether it's my subconscious, great book by Malcolm Gladwell called Blink. Won't get into that, but goes into this kind of, your subconscious can pick up on things that you don't pick up on. It picks up on a lot of things. So whether it's God or subconscious, I believe it's God. Could be subconscious, whatever. This next part, it's not my subconscious, because the next part, I'm like, okay, Lord, and I just put my hands up, and I start praising, saying yes, okay, and not even a minute, maybe 30 seconds later, I feel this warmth in my jaw and my teeth, and I had just started going to an orthodontist, and they'd just done a mold of my mouth, because, I'm sorry, I used to suck my thumb. I used to. I don't still, okay? But I used to suck my thumb growing up. And I was 12. Remember, I was 12. And so it kind of gave me a really nasty overbite. Not a nasty, but, substantial overbite. And it also kind of messed up my teeth. So my teeth were all, so we're going to have to do dentistry, orthodontics, braces, brace face, all this stuff. And I feel this warmth in my mouth. And my teeth move. God straightens out my teeth. And that was out of Mario Murillo thing. So this is one of those things when you have, I call them anchors, I think I mentioned this. But this is important. In your life, God's going to prove himself at different times in your life. You need to write those things down. You need to revisit them. In the Bible, they would put stones. They would make stone monuments after the cross, the Red Sea, that they would put a stone monument. They'd do, okay, we're going to commemorate this. Okay, when we cross the Jordan, we're going to take some rocks here and put them here. So there's these commemorations. I call them anchors in your life. So this is one for me. So I can say all this stuff. I can say, okay, maybe it was my subconscious. Maybe, okay, I question myself a lot. But this is one that was because God did something. Subconscious can't straighten my teeth. And so I eventually went back I told my mom right afterwards, I went back up to the balcony because we always sit in the balcony late. 6 kids. Okay. But, so anyway, went back there, told my mom, she looked, and then we went to the orthodontist. She told the orthodontist, I wasn't part of that conversation, but she relayed it to me. She said, the orthodontist was like, wow, that's really awesome, because he saw that my teeth were straight. He said, I just wish God had fixed his overbite too. Yeah, that's a story for another day. But yeah, I still had to do this thing because I had still a nasty overbite from that sucking my thumb. That I stopped like then and there because I was like, okay, I'm done messing with my mouth, And so I did have to have that retainer and all that stuff, all that fun stuff that you get with braces. And that's a story for another day about why didn't God heal my overbite too? But it is what it is. So anyway, okay, so this is a long-winded homage, if you will, to Pastor Dennis Miles and his sermon on saying yes to God. Don't say nay, 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 right? Don't say nay. Nay, Nix Nay, the nay nays. Ooh, that would be a good title. Nix Nay, the nay nays. Or say nay. Say no to God. Enjoy this over here. Or, choice is yours. But my challenge, my encouragement, my admonition is say yes to God, because you never know the doors that your yeses. It's a walk of faith. It's going to a process. But as you say yes to God, as you are obedient, he's going to give you other things. I heard this a number of times. But God doesn't change his mind. Well, he does change his mind when we pray and intercede, and there's God. Okay. But when he gives you a direction, and you're like, no, here's the problem. He doesn't have a plan B. He's not going to be like, well, okay, since you said no, I'll give you another option. I'll give you this, let's do this instead. No, he's like, well, okay, well, then I guess we'll stop here, right? Let's go to the promised land, for instance, going back to the children of Israel. Let's go to the promised land. They're like, no, we're going to stay, but we're going to go back to Egypt. And he's like, no. All right, when you're ready, we're going to go in the promised land. Actually, you're not going to be ready. You're going to all die here in this wilderness. But your children, they will obey me. He didn't have a plan B. We're going to take this promised land, all right? And I think when God gives us, I went hiking today, Lake Bixoma, beautiful day, good hike. And the interesting thing, going back to, I went to hiking in college, and I like to hike. They would say, if you ever get lost, they had a southern accent, and I just slurred my words. If you ever get lost, go back to the last point where you knew you were on the trail. Go back to the last point where you knew you were on the trail. So you go back. You go back to the last point where you're on the trail. And trails, if you've been hiking, they're a lot of times marked. Like this trail is marked with spray paint on the trees, like orange, fluorescent orange spray paint. Okay, you're on the right trail. These are the, So you go back to the last mark. Sometimes they'll put like ribbons on the trees. They do it different ways, but depending on the trailblazer. But you go back to the last point you're on the trail. So if you've gotten lost and you walk with God and you're like, God, you're not talking to me. What happened? Go back to the last point, and usually it's a point where you said no. Usually there's a point where you said, no, I'm not going to do that, God. And God's like, I still love you. I'm still going to look after you. But we're not moving forward. God's like, are you ready to say yes? When you're ready to say yes, it's like as a father when your kids are young, I'm not the best father, but I tried. I still try. I'm still a father. But you're like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And the kid would throw a fit, and sometimes I'd cave in. TBH, totally, I'd sometimes cave in, but sometimes I'd stand my ground and be like, no, this is what we're going to do. And then when they get around to that, actually, my best experience with that was Chuck E. Cheese. I would take the kids to Chuck E. Cheese. My wife at the time, she worked weekends, so I had the kids on the weekends, so I'd take them to Chuck E. Cheese. And we got early on at the end when they would throw a fit, I'd be like, no, we're not going to throw a fit. If you throw a fit, we're not coming back. And I remember the first couple times they would throw a fit, and okay, we wouldn't be back. And they'd be like, let's go to Chuck E. Cheese. And I'd be like, well, last time we went, you threw a fit, so we're gonna wait on that for a little bit. And then after a month or two, they'd be like, "Oh, Dad, we like Chuck E. Cheese." And so eventually we'd go back, and they would know, okay, we can't throw a fit, because we throw a fit, we're going to miss out on Chuck E. Cheese for a couple months. I mean, I would take them to Chuck E. Cheese like 2 or 3 times a month. All right, maybe not that much, but a lot. So God is a much better dad than me, not a surprise there. But he's like, hey, are you going to say yes? And my encouragement is say yes. You never know what doors that opens. God does. And the other thing is, if you're stuck and you're trapped and you're like, Lord, my life's not going anywhere. I'm stuck. I'm lost. Well, go back to the last point where you told him no. And say yes. Shalom.